From desperados to sheriffs, the Wild West's deadliest figures. The Wild West, a time of untamed frontiers, where danger lurked around every corner and justice was often served at the barrel of a gun. It was an era defined by legendary figures, both feared and revered, who walked the fine line between law and chaos. In this rugged landscape, some took up the badge to bring order to the lawless, while others chose a path of infamy, living by their wits and their weapons. Today, we're counting down the most notorious figures of the Wild West, ranking both the outlaws who terrorized the frontier and the lawmen who fought to bring them down. These men and women became legends, their names etched into history as symbols of a time when survival meant being the quickest draw and the sharpest mind. Let's dive into the stories of these iconic gunslingers, from those who upheld the law to those who broke it. Number 10, Davy Crockett. We start our countdown with a name that might surprise you, Davy Crockett. While he's often remembered as a folk hero and a politician, his early days in the West paint a different picture. Before he became a symbol of American frontier spirit, Crockett was known as a deadly hunter and scout. His skill with a rifle earned him a fearsome reputation. Crockett's exploits in battle and his participation in the Creek War made him a formidable figure in the Wild West. His legend grew after his death at the Alamo, cementing his place in history as both a hero and a killer. Number 9, the Dalton Gang. Next up is a group rather than a single man, the Dalton Gang. This band of brothers, Bob, Grat, Emmett, and later, Bill Dalton, wreaked havoc across the West in the early 1890s. They started as lawmen, but soon turned to the more lucrative life of crime. The Daltons made a name for themselves with a string of successful train and bank robberies. However, their downfall came in 1892 when they attempted to rob two banks simultaneously in Coffeyville, Kansas. The townsfolk, fed up with the gang's terror, fought back, and in a bloody shootout, Bob, Grat, and Bill were killed. Emmett Dalton survived, but the gang's reign of terror was over. Their audacious crimes and brutal end earned them a notorious place in Western history. Number 8, Billy the Kid. At number 8, we have one of the most iconic names in Wild West history, Billy the Kid. Born Henry McCarty, Billy the Kid became infamous for his youthful recklessness and deadly accuracy with a gun. His life of crime began in his teens, and by the time he was 21, he had already killed at least 8 men. Billy's notoriety skyrocketed during the Lincoln County War, a bloody feud in New Mexico, where he became the most wanted man in the territory. Despite being captured and sentenced to hang, Billy managed to escape from jail, killing 2 deputies in the process. His legend grew until he was finally hunted down and killed by Sheriff Pat Garrett in 1881. Even in death, Billy the Kid's name continues to symbolize the wild, untamed spirit of the American frontier. Number 7, John Wesley Hardin. John Wesley Hardin, our number 7, was one of the deadliest gunmen in the history of the Wild West. By his own account, Hardin killed 42 men, though the actual number is likely lower. What sets Hardin apart from other outlaws was his sheer ruthlessness. He killed his first man at the age of 15, and his violent streak only grew from there. Hardin's victims included lawmen, fellow outlaws, and anyone who crossed him. His violent reputation made him a target, and he spent much of his life on the run. Eventually captured, Hardin was sentenced to 25 years in prison, but was released after serving 16 years. Remarkably, he tried to live a quieter life as a lawyer, but the violence of his past caught up with him. In 1895, Hardin was shot and killed by an off-duty lawman. His legacy as one of the West's most fearsome gunfighters lives on. Number 6, Jesse James. Jesse James is a name synonymous with the Wild West. At number 6, Jesse's story is one of a Confederate guerrilla turned outlaw. After the Civil War, James and his brother Frank led the infamous James Younger gang, robbing banks, stagecoaches, and trains across the Midwest. Jesse's daring and ruthlessness made him a folk hero to some and a cold-blooded killer to others. His most notorious crime was the 1876 Northfield, Minnesota bank robbery, where a failed attempt to loot the bank led to a bloody shootout that left several members of the gang dead. Jesse's criminal career was marked by violence, betrayal, and a relentless pursuit by lawmen. His life ended in 1882 when he was betrayed and shot in the back by Robert Ford, one of his own gang members. Jesse James' name became legendary, symbolizing both the romanticized and brutal reality of the outlaw life. Number 5, Butch Cassidy. Coming in at number 5 is Butch Cassidy, leader of the Wild Bunch, a gang known for their string of successful bank and train robberies. Born Robert Leroy Parker, Cassidy was known for his charm and intelligence, often planning meticulous heists that minimized violence. However, the Wild Bunch's operations were far from bloodless. Their ability to evade capture and the high-profile nature of their crimes made them notorious throughout the West. Butch Cassidy's legend only grew after his supposed death in Bolivia, where it said he and his partner, the Sundance Kid, were killed in a shootout with local authorities. However, rumors persisted that Cassidy survived, adding to his mystique. Whether he died in Bolivia or lived out his days in anonymity, Butch Cassidy's name remains one of the most celebrated in Wild West lore. Number 4. Wild Bill Hickok. Wild Bill Hickok, our number 4, straddled the line between lawman and outlaw. Hickok was known for his exceptional skill with a gun and his fearless demeanor. He made a name for himself as a Union spy during the Civil War and later as a lawman in the West. However, Hickok's legendary status comes not just from his law enforcement career, but from the numerous gunfights he engaged in. One of the most famous was the 1865 shootout in Springfield, Missouri, where Hickok killed Davis Tutt in what is often considered the first quick-draw duel in the West. His reputation as a gunslinger only grew, and he became a figure of fascination in dime novels and newspapers. Wild Bill's life was cut short in 1876 when he was shot in the back while playing poker in Deadwood, South Dakota. Even in death, Hickok's legend continued to grow, making him one of the most iconic figures of the Wild West. Number 3. Belle Starr. At number 3, we have the bandit queen herself, Belle Starr. Unlike most of the outlaws on our list, Belle wasn't a gunslinger in the traditional sense, but her influence and criminal exploits made her one of the most feared women in the West. Born Myra Maybelle Shirley, Belle was involved in horse theft, bootlegging, and harboring criminals. She associated with some of the most notorious outlaws of the time, including Jesse James and the Younger Brothers. Belle's cunning and ruthlessness earned her the title of the Bandit Queen. Her life of crime was cut short when she was ambushed and killed in 1889, but her legacy as a female outlaw who defied the norms of the Wild West lives on. Number 2. Wyatt Earp. Wyatt Earp, our number 2, is perhaps one of the most famous figures in Western history. While not a traditional outlaw, Earp's role in the infamous gunfight at the OK Corral and his subsequent vendetta ride cemented his place in the annals of the Wild West. As a lawman, Earp often operated in the gray areas of the law, using his badge to exact personal vengeance. The gunfight at the OK Corral in 1881, where Earp, his brothers, and Doc Holliday faced off against the Clanton McGlory gang, became one of the most legendary moments in Western history. The aftermath saw Earp embarking on a bloody vendetta against those who had wronged him, further blurring the lines between lawman and outlaw. Wyatt Earp's legacy is a complex one, but there is no denying his impact on the mythology of the Wild West. Number 1. Doc Holliday. Topping our list at number 1 is the infamous Doc Holliday. A gambler, gunfighter, and dentist by trade, Holliday was known for his quick temper and even quicker draw. His reputation as a deadly gunslinger was solidified during the OK Corral shootout, where he stood alongside Wyatt Earp. Holliday's life was one of constant movement, from one frontier town to another, leaving behind a trail of violence and fear. Despite suffering from tuberculosis, Holliday's skill with a gun was unmatched, and his willingness to use it made him one of the most feared men in the West. His loyalty to Earp during the vendetta ride and his many other exploits made him a legendary figure. Doc Holliday's legacy as the deadliest gunfighter of the Wild West is well earned, and his story continues to captivate those fascinated by this tumultuous period in American history. Conclusion. Thanks for joining us on this wild ride through the past. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you never miss another tale from the untamed frontier. And as always, keep your powder dry, your aim steady, and your sense of adventure alive. See you next time.